Joining me now live from Israel is Dr. Rob Lindsted. Are the asteroids, the meteorites, are they already on their way? Or what the Bible talks about in Revelation, the book of Revelation, talks about hail falling on the earth, meteorites. Are they already on their way? That's a good question. You may say that's an odd question. But did you know that also in the book of Job, Job chapter 38, verse 22. Look at this. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hail? Verse 23, which I reserve for times of trouble, for days of war and battle. Wow. Here's the question, folks. Does God already have a storehouse of hail? Are the fault lines in the earth already cracking and moving for massive earthquakes? Because the Bible speaks about earthquakes like this world has never seen. You know, we've got all these judgments that are happening in the book of Revelation, your trumpet judgments. And then it really ramps up with your bowl judgments. Really ramps up. We just finished that up on Sunday nights on Revelation chapter 16. Earthquakes like this world has never seen. Is the ground underneath us already shifting? Because scientists are studying earthquakes and are quite alarmed. And they're even now talking about fault lines that they say have been ignored, some of them here in the U.S. There are scientists, like here's the New York Post. The New York Post. This is a new article last week, May 28th, 2025. 3 city-killing asteroids could strike Earth within weeks, generating 1 million times more energy than Hiroshima, that atomic bomb. This is not the only one. We've got quite a few articles like this. Here's the one about scientists now monitoring 7 overlooked fault lines across the U.S. Here's another one. May 26, 2025, NASA monitoring trio of house-sized asteroids skimming Earth at hypersonic speed. How about some that are still far out? Has God already released some of these asteroids? Has he already started to let the tectonic plates shift to prepare for the things that are discussed in the Bible? Does he already have a storehouse of hail per Job 38, verse 22 and 23? Is the stage being set in more ways than most of us know? Even those of us who study this full time pretty much. Is the stage being set in the Middle East? Is the stage being set economically, militarily, spiritually? With the rise of anti-Semitism, the hatred of Christianity and Christians, the rise of persecution of many Jews, many Christians on a global scale. Many people are losing faith in their governments. They're looking for an answer, a leader, someone that will step forward and actually solve the world's problems. Is the stage being set for a one-world leader? The increasing interest in UFOs by members of Congress holding committee meetings on it and hearings. A white paper released by the Pentagon with a scientist out of Harvard about UFOs. The Bible speaks an awful lot in Revelation about these entities that come on the earth that I think are demons. But could that be used to UFOs, extraterrestrials be used as a way to describe that, what's going on? Or the removal, if you believe in a pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, whatever you believe in there, about the removal of Christians from the face of the earth. Will UFOs be used as a cover that these were the negative people? It just seems like so much is happening to set the stage for what's coming. But do we notice? Joining me now from Israel tonight live, Dr. Rob Lindsted. Dr. Lindsted, welcome back to the broadcast. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure to be with you.
What do you make of my opening monologue here?
Well, the Bible certainly talks about the tribulation time is going to have disasters like we've never seen, and you can almost divide it into three areas, and I say three areas because there's 21 judgments, there's seals that are broken, and then it seems like God comes back and he intensifies them with the trumpets, and then things really get bad when he pours the bowls out, and so it's like there's a warning that God has given to us. Um, I think I'm concerned. Yeah, the increase in earthquakes. It's not something that you'd say is natural. It's unnatural, and but it's predictable. And so these scientists. I mean, these aren't God fearing people. These are scientists, and they're watching scientific data. I think another thing that we can add to that whole mix is the weather manipulation. Do you remember? Sorry to do that to you. I'm suffering from over talking today and weather and hay fever.
I
Uh,
understand.
but remember, a few years ago they were talking about how that because of cows, that we're ruining the environment. Drinking coffee, we're messing up the environment. We're going to have an app that's going to be a carbon counter. This is crazy. That the weather modifications from cows, coffee, that stuff, it's nothing compared to what are they doing with weather? You know, more and more evidence shows that they are actually targeting cities, regions of the country to bring about severe weather. They're changing magnetic fields, and so the more they ignore this, the more I think, okay, there's probably some truth to it. So look at all the things that are, I'm going to say, just going almost haywire. We've got earthquakes like we've never seen before. We've got flooding, weather manipulation like we've never seen before. We've got everything is out of control. When you look at I'm going to say the Earth data, the Earth health, it's not very healthy. And now we add in a political mix, and to me, what it says is this would be a perfect way to get the world to say we really need someone to solve problems. So who are they going to go to? They're going to go to an antichrist. This guy's going to pretend like he's got the solution to problems scientifically, earth-wise, weather-wise. Man, you can't play games with God when it comes to these earthquakes. They're devastating. You can't play games with God when it comes to these tornadoes. They're taking hundreds of lives. So we got to be careful because God's running out of time and patience with us.
Indeed, he is. What do you make of Revelation chapter 11, verse 19? This is at the seventh trumpet judgment. And the temple of God, which is in heaven, was opened, and the ark of his covenant appeared in his temple. And there was flashes of lightning and sounds of pearls of thunder and an earthquake and a great hail storm. And I just read, Dr. Linstead, from Job chapter 38, verse 22. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow or seen the storehouses of the hail, which I have reserved for times of trouble, for the days of war and battle? Do you think that some of these things that are being discussed in Revelation, that they're already, the stage is being set even naturally? Meteorites, asteroids, hailstorms, plagues, pandemics, as we have all these level 4 bioweapon laboratories around the world, many of them that are leaking. Yeah, this week we had 2 Chinese CCP folks arrested in Michigan. And the FBI says they're loyal to the CCP, and they were bringing in a pathogen that is known as a biological weapon against crops, particularly wheat. Apparently the CCP wants to destroy our food supply. Do you think many of these things, the plagues, the bioweapons, the hail, the meteorites, the asteroids they're worried about, the earthquake fault lines, is this all setting the stage? Is the earth already starting to be prepared and groaning for the tribulation that's about to unfold once I think the church is removed?
Well, I've not considered that passage in Job 38 before, but you know what, when you read it, it makes perfect sense because God has warned us that judgment's coming. He's told us that that these judgments are going to be so severe that if the days were short, no flesh would be saved. I think we're looking at that because we're a political mess. I think we're an economic mess, and now we're an environmental mess. We're perfectly set up for an antichrist.
Well, speaking of that, what are the people in Israel saying about Benjamin Netanyahu? What are they saying about their own government? What are they saying about Donald Trump? What is the confidence and the ability do they have in the wherewithal of Netanyahu and Trump to deal with the threats against Israel and to deal with Iran? Not to mention, you've been there now while rockets are being shot in from Syria. What is the temperature of the Israeli people concerning their own leader and our leader here in America?
I think they've lost confidence in them. They were optimistic that, because Netanyahu talked a big talk, Trump talked a big talk. It sounded like, okay, we're gonna make it so that they've got to give back the hostages. We're going to make it so they have to accept some kind of a settlement. Nothing's happened. They keep drawing a line, and sorry,
that's all right.
And people keep crossing that line. So they've lost hope. They thought Trump was going to make a kind of be an enforcer. Now they say, was he bought by the people of the Arab countries? Because it looks like it's more about investments. It looks like it's more about let's make economic deals than it is about bringing home hostages and bringing freedom to the forefront.
Mm. Well, and look at this headline today out of the Jerusalem Post. U.S. proposes interim step in Iran nuclear talks, allowing some uranium enrichment. Boy, I'll tell you something. As I said on radio today, Iran has played one administration after another, and they just keep buying time and buying time and buying time. And I'm not buying this idea that they're this close to getting the nuclear weapon. I think they have multiple bombs already. The question is how many? I'm not buying that they don't have a method for delivery. I think they have plenty of missiles that they can have purchased from Russia or China, or more likely North Korea. But boy, they have just played one administration and slow walk this while they just keep adding. And now the U.S. is proposing an interim step that allows them to develop more enrichment, uranium enrichment. Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's foolish. Everyone knows it's foolish. The only ones being fooled are the leaders. I just felt like Trump was going to be stronger on this, but he's fallen right into it. The truth is, he talked about, okay, we're going to do something horrible. They've passed it so many times. The headlines are saying 60% enrichment, enough for 10 bombs. You only need enough for one. The people of Israel are disgusted because they say, is there really a leader in the world that can deliver? Well, I'm afraid that sets the stage for an antichrist because he tricks them. He says, yeah, I'm going to deliver, and it's going to look like he can because they've given up hope on their government. They're now giving up hope on Trump. Why? The wars continue. Iran's getting stronger, not weaker. And the hostages aren't returned. Government is at an all-time low in terms of delivery to people for what they're elected for.
Tell me about what is happening to the IDF over there and the war going on between the government and the Orthodox Jews who are conscientious objectors. They don't go off to war. Their kids don't belong to the IDF. They're not forced to join the IDF for a period of time like everybody else is. What is happening to your supply of warfighters and your internal tension among Israelis themselves, between the ones going off to war, whose kids are going to war, versus the Orthodox who have the majority of the children whose kids are exempt? Tell me about that.
Well, they're very frustrated. And here's what they say. It's easy to say, let's do war. But if your kids never have to serve, you're never threatened with, I'm going to lose one of my kids. Some of these men have been fighting 600 days. They've lost their jobs. Their job says, we can't continue to hold your work. Some have come back and said, you know what? I'm so mentally, physically drained from the war. I can't perform at the level I did before. So some of them have been arrested. Some are being in lawsuits. I'm hurting for them because they say we can't continue this. This war is drug out for 600 days, and the truth is we need a leader. Where is a leader in the world? Is it in our country, Israel? Is it America? Is it someone's got to be a leader to say, let's finish this whole process?
Could Benjamin Netanyahu get himself reelected again if there were elections held right now?
Not a chance. Not a chance. You know, they had to put together a coalition, and the coalition is falling apart.
Let's go to this video footage that's come out. Watch this, folks. Here we go. Well, get it to play here. Here we go.
This morning, the fallout from the Boulder, Colorado firebombing attack. The wife and 5 children of suspect Mohammed Sabri Soliman now in ICE custody, being processed for expedited deportation.
Mohammed's despicable actions will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But we're also investigating to what extent his family knew about this horrific attack.
Chilling video shows what appears to be the moment the suspect threw a Molotov cocktail into a peaceful group of Jewish demonstrators.
I want to show that again, folks. Watch him walk up and do that.
Setting innocent demonstrators into a peaceful group of Jewish demonstrators.
Wow.
Setting innocent people and later himself on fire, allegedly yelling "Free Palestine" at the crowd and injuring a dozen people before he was taken into custody. Authorities saying they recovered a weed sprayer backpack containing flammable liquid along with 16 unused Molotov cocktails. Soliman is an Egyptian national and was allegedly in the country illegally after overstaying his tourist visa. ABC News has learned he appeared to record pro-terror messages just hours before. Among those injured in the attack, at least one of them is still in the hospital in serious condition. Rabbi Mark Soloway knows several of the victims, one of them an 88-year-old woman who previously survived the Holocaust.
She's an incredibly resilient person who is horrified that in her lifetime she can see a resurgence of anti-Semitism, something that she and her family survived.
And that Rabbi also talked about the grief and the fury of having Jewish people set on fire in the streets of America in 2025. The suspect is due back in court tomorrow, George.
What are they saying in Israel about this, Dr. Woods? Dr. Lindstedt?
Well, they're so disappointed. They thought they had a friend in America, but they say, you know what? We're being hated around the world. We don't initiate these problems, but we're the ones that are hated for these problems. They talk continually about France. They say France is gone. I have a couple of people with me from the United Kingdom. They say I haven't been in the United Kingdom for several years. They say if you'd come, you wouldn't recognize it. They said we don't recognize our country. The people of Israel say, you know what? The world is insane. Why are they picking on us? They say, what have we done? And they point to the Coloradans and say, what have we done? People can yell and scream about all kinds of things. They're not even arrested. And we have a peaceful demonstration. We're killed and nobody cares. It's almost like it's our fault that we were victims. And what's our crime? And their crime is they were born Jewish. The world's out of control. And I think it's God's way of getting our attention. Sooner or later, we got to come to grips with the fact that the fallen nature of man, and I think the activity the Bible speaks of in Ephesians, spiritual activity in high places, we're watching that gain ground against sanity and I'd say common sense. It's gone.
It's gone. There was I played it on radio today. Let me see if I can find it again. This was NYPD. They, here we go. Here it is. Here we go. Look at this. NYPD orders Jews to move rather than Jew haters harassing them. So you say, we're the ones being arrested. And yet the people that are doing all this don't. I can't play the video, their audio. So look, he pulls his pants down. What you're about to see are some Orthodox Jews sitting on a bench. But the language is so bad at these Jews, what they're saying to them. Now the NYPD is going to come along and tell the Jews that you're the ones that need to get up and go on home instead of arresting these people that I think are involved in assault. And I explained to my radio audience today, for those who don't know, assault and battery. Battery is when you put your hands on somebody. Assault can be when you get up in their face or make threats against them to make them fearful for their safety or life. And there are the Jews just sitting there peacefully on a park bench. And yet they're told, go get out of here. And nothing happens to these people, you know, and this is exactly what you're talking about. I mean, you didn't know I was going to play this, did you?
No. I really do. I think the human race is out of control. How did we lose control? Well, we left a standard. We gotta have a standard.
Yep.
And the standard's got to be God's word. The only chance of sanity was having a standard. God's word was that standard. We've left that standard. We've left every standard. The heroes today are the people who are the vilest and the crudest. The people being arrested are the victims. How is this turned around so quickly? Well, I think it's the spirit of Antichrist. And so now let's say that with all this violence taking place, with all this failure and hatred of Jews, so now let's say a leader comes to the forefront. He says, okay, guess what? I'm really on your side. I can get them to allow you to accept you. I'll even guarantee you for 7 years the chance to have religious freedom, including sacrifice. You know what? They would jump on it tonight.
Wow.
And the Bible says he's going to do that. Perfect setup, because 3.5 years down the road, he's going to say, you know what? I'm just like them. I lied to you. I tricked you. You can only worship me. And so I've been here. Several people have been arrested, Jewish people going up to Temple Mount trying to begin sacrifices. So these are zealots. They do it knowing that they're going to get arrested. They do it because they say sooner or later, you know, one of us is going to do a sacrifice up there. It's going to bring attention. It's going to bring everyone on our side. No, it's just dividing things more and more.
Wow.
And we live in a fragmented world. And here's the thing. No one has any sense of right or wrong. That's why when we left standards, biblical standards of right and wrong, common sense standards, we put things in a tailspin.
Talk about standards and right and wrong. We let this Muslim dude through the Biden regime come into America, overstay his visa. He should have never been here. Apparently, he's tied right back to Muslim Brotherhood, which, you know, gave birth to Hamas in 1987. I want people to read this, because they don't speak Arabic, unless you do, guys in the audience, like Usama Dakdok. Otherwise, read the subtitles of what this terrorist who did the flame-throwing stuff in Boulder, look what he said. His videos. Allah is greater than anything, he says. Allah is greater than the Zionists. Allah is greater than America. Allah is greater than the F-35 planes or anything else. So why do we fear those who are inferior to Allah rather than fear Allah himself? He goes on, if I told my wife and son every day to do something, but they didn't do it, would I be angry? Maybe I would divorce my wife. Maybe I would kick my son out of home. Then what about Allah, who says to us every day dozens of times, Allah Akbar?
Well,
do not forget Allah Akbar. Do not forget that Allah is greater than everything. That's what he's saying here, folks. Now look what he goes on to say. Not the Zionist, America, Britain, France, or Germany. Only Allah has the right to be feared. I say to my mother, my wife, my children, my brothers, my people, test before Allah and before you that Allah, his messenger, and jihad for Allah's sake are more beloved to me than you and the whole world are. Wow. So jihad is more important to him than his wife and children. There you go. And this is now spread all over the UK, all over Germany, all over France, all over America. I just saw a video on social media today in Minneapolis, a Somali school graduation. If they didn't tell me they were in Minnesota, I would have thought they were in Somalia. I mean, they've even changed the Minnesota flag up there to look like the Somali flag. You talk about no common sense, no standards. We have allowed the enemies of our republic to come in here. And now I think our days as a nation are numbered. I really do. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I can see all the signs of how a nation commits suicide, and we're doing it.
Well, this is a sad day. And, I remember starting Sunrise because I felt like the public schools, there was nothing patriotic. I saw the trend, 30, 40 years ago, that if you were patriotic, they almost put you down. If you suggested pledging the flag, they put you down. So there was nothing spiritual. There was nothing biblical. There wasn't even good academics. We have paid an incredible price. And I look at what's taking place. The people in the United Kingdom say our country is ruined. Our heritage is gone. Look at France. Who in the world would want to move to France? The leader claims he's going to be the next great world power. He's slapped by his wife. He's disrespected by his country. He's got mob scenes going on. It's not just France. It's the whole world. The whole world is in this chaotic form.
And now you got France. Look at this. Washington warns the UK and France against recognizing a Palestinian statehood.
Yeah. Can you believe that the UN is pushing this, and UK is sending money to help sponsor this thing? The common sense is out the door.
And now the Jews are being told, you better arm yourself. Time to arm yourself. Zionist organization calls on you as Jews. Time to arm yourself.
Well,
I think a bunch of Jews have been told in France, get out of there. Get to Israel. Get out of France. Get to Israel. You can't live we can't safely reside in France anymore. And we heard about that poor lady who was one of the victims of the firebombing in Boulder. She was an 88-year-old survivor of the Holocaust.
Wow, what a tragedy. Well, I can understand why God's patience is running out. God's patience ran out with the people of Noah's day. God's patience ran out with the people of Lot's day. Why would it be any different as we watch ourselves move further from God? With all God's warnings, we're moving further away from him. And with all the support of God's word saying, support the Jews, we're watching even that support erode.
Yeah. We're not saying you have to support everything the Israeli government ever does, but the Jewish people and their right to live in America, to live in the UK. And they can't even go out on a Sunday afternoon and show their desire for Jewish hostages to be released without being set on fire. Now let's go back over to Israel where you're at tonight. I don't know if they're showing this on the media over there, but here are a bunch of the Hamas guys in Gaza. They are taking Gazans who took some of the UN food, the aid, which I guess the Hamas grabs it up and Hamas then sells it. And these guys took some of the food and now they're having thief spray painted on them, I guess in Arabic. And they're about to release these guys to the mob. Some of them have already been put in cages. They've been deprived of food. And now they've been let out, hands tied, thief sprayed on them. The beating starts. And then they let the mobs get at them. Now, this is Hamas doing this to the people of Gaza. The mainstream media in America, from everything I can tell, like the New York Post just picked it up, thankfully. But the mainstream media, from everything I'm being told and watching and seeing, is not reporting this. They're blaming Israel. They're saying Israel fired and killed a bunch of the people when the aid was being delivered. This was Hamas, Dr. Lindstedt.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean,
is this being reported in Israel?
No. Now, you got to remember that we were out doing tours and so like that. So I just came back in a few minutes ago. It was dark by the time I got back in. So I haven't watched as much news as I normally watch. But let me tell you, I have not seen any of that footage on television here.
Well, here's another one. This stuff is it's again, I can see why the folks in Israel are thinking, wait a minute, what's going on? I thought Netanyahu and Trump were going to fix some of these things. Wow.
Yeah, they're losing faith in government, and probably the Bible says the world's going to turn against them, because I think what's going to happen, they're going to retaliate on their own.
So you think they're going to eventually go after Iran on their own?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to, because they're so small that they can't afford. Their best defense is an offense.
Are you hearing any time frame? Any thoughts as to whether that's next month, this year, next year?
No, not time frames. At this point, it's just disappointment. They thought they had a friend in their own government. They don't. They say they change. They change every day. They thought they had a friend in Trump, and now they say Trump just wants to make deals. They say he's more interested in making a deal. He likes to talk about peace, but he said there's still no real plan that they're getting a commitment from anybody. And so they go back and say, so what that says is sooner or later, we've got to retaliate. And how are they going to retaliate? Well, I can tell you this, it won't be a soft retaliation, and it'll make the world go against Israel again.
And we just saw rockets shot from Syria into Israel. What are they saying about President Trump going to the Arab world and those girls all dancing and then shaking hands with the new president of Syria? And now you got rockets shooting in there from Israel, or from Syria into Israel. What are they saying about that?
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Well, they're very disappointed because they really felt like the United States was behind them. They thought Trump was the best thing that ever happened. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like the whole deal of solving the hostage crisis, of solving the situation in Gaza, now is on the back burner, because what we're trying to do, we need, it looks like investments. This nation is going to give $500 billion. This nation is going to give $1 trillion to do this or that. But promising money doesn't fix the problem. Hamas is a terrorist organization, regardless of how much money the other Arab nations invest in America. That's not stopping the problem.
Well, it seems as though the urgency has become about our financial collapse. The urgency has become about our imminent financial collapse versus what I think is an imminent massive terrorist attack in America. I could be 100% wrong, Dr. Lindstedt, as we wrap here, but I believe that something like 9/11 or worse, something like October 7th in Israel is coming to America. And while we're all worried about the financial issues, and I know those are kitchen table issues that impact polls and midterm elections coming up and all that, but while there's a lot of focus on shoring up our economy, a lot of distraction, that is, to the existential threat of all the terrorist groups that are here in the U.S. So in some sense, what I'm saying about my own country and your country is what the Israelis are saying about their country. We're worried about the existential threats of survival, and they're working on economic deals. We're worried about the existential threat within our own country, and the emphasis is financial deals. So the financial crisis that our country has put itself in after so many, basically since 1913, is become such a massive distraction that our enemies are using that against us. Closing comment?
Well, they mention the students, and they say, we can't believe that there were students that essentially blackmailed the United States. They say, and if you're worried about that, they say, we know that there's other terrorists there. It's not a guess. We know there's other terrorists. So you've let terrorists in on student visas. You've let them in. They're doing all kinds of testing. They look like they think they got approval to do some testing at, I think it was Michigan University. I don't know that that's true, but there's no doubt that they were working together. So they say the infiltration of the terrorists into America, whether it's through spies, whether it's through people making money, they said America has lost its power, its steam, and now they've lost their face because they keep promising help and they never deliver.
Well, here it is. New York Post. The New York Post is reporting that Columbia protester and self-proclaimed Jew hater had direct links to Hamas terror cells, disturbing phone records reveal. Dr. Lindstead, there are, I believe, these students that have come into our country that are tied to terror cells. They've come in as students, but they're here as terror cells in the U.S. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. The people in Israel on the ground are telling you about about your own country.
Yep, that's exactly right. They say we made huge mistakes, and they're not sure anyone knows how to fix it because we have so many that have wedged their way into our country, either by the open border or by invitation through these so-called universities.
Are they worried that America may not be around, or that America will be in its own, death throes, that we can't even do anything about helping them in any way? Are they worried about America being brought down to the point that they don't have America as an ally anymore because we are so weakened with a mortal wound ourselves?
Yeah, they say America now appears as weaker than anyone ever suspected because they can't even protect their own borders. They can't protect their own citizens. They just feel like they've got to go it alone. They've got to do it by themselves. And I think that's what's going to bring the world to hate them, because I think they might use massive force to do it.
Which could then kick off World War III, and the Jews will be blamed for kicking off World War III.
Yep, that's exactly right. The whole world will turn against them. Yeah.
BibleTipNow.org, BibleTipNow.org. Dr. Lindstead in Israel. We'll pray for your health, the hay fever, the allergies, that you can get some sleep tonight. And we thank you for making time for us, Dr. Lindstead.
Glad to do it. Have a good day.
BibleTipNow.org, BibleTipNow.org. We'll be right back after this break. We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.